So in this following tutorial, we're going to learn how to do figures. Now, figures in a scientific report are basically a graphic representation of results. So figures include schematic diagrams, pictures, and graphs. There's a number of different types of graphs we can look at. Firstly, if we just take this as some of our sample data. In this sample data, we've got trials 1 through 6, and we've got subject 1 and subject 2, and a pile of different numbers. Now, these numbers could be reflective of a score or a time, or it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this. So the first thing we're going to do is learn how to draw a line graph. And if I want to draw a line graph between subject 1 to have a look at how these scores over time, go up or down or any which way. So let's have a look what this would look like. So subject 1, what I would have to do is, in order to draw a graph of this, I need to highlight what I want to actually graph. So in this case, it would be subject 1's information. I don't need to highlight the trials 1 through 6, because as long as it's progressing in a numerical order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the graph will already automatically, it's got like a default setting that will already graph with 1 through 6 in this case written across that x-axis on the bottom. So I've highlighted my subject 1 scores, I go up to insert, I go line graph. These are the different types of line graphs. Really, they're all acceptable for what we're doing. I like to keep it simple, so either just the basic line graphs without the dots, or this one here with the actual markers is pretty appropriate for what we're doing. So here I've got subject 1, and you can see automatically default on the x-axis 1 through 6, which is the same as the trials 1 through 6. And then the scores up here, you can see his first score there is 23, matches the 23. Second score is 34, matches the 34, and so on. The y-axis numbers are automatically calculated. The default setting basically puts the highest number a little bit higher than your highest score point, which was in this case 56, which is your highest number over here, 56. So now if we just want to improve this graph slightly, what do we need to do to it? Firstly, when we're putting it into a Word document, the headings never go at the top. They're formatted, they're written about in the Word document section, so the labeling will go there. So straight away we can remove that. The second thing is we always do work in shades of grey. So black, white, shades of grey is the correct way to do it in scientific reports. So we tend not to use colour. So what we need to do is we highlight our plots. That's just me clicking a left click on my points. Then I right click and I get this list of options. If I go down to Format Data Series, this gives me my whole list of options about how to change the appearance of these marker points. So Format Data Series, I can change my marker fills, my line colors, my line styles, just about everything is found in this part. So let's go to marker fill rather than automatic, because it's giving me an automatic blue. I don't want that. Let's go solid fill, just change it into a black type color. Happy with that, close. They're now in black. Do the same with the line, click on the line, the markers again, right click, format my data set. Now I'll go my line color, solid line again, and I'll change that to black also. You do the same if you've got markers with the outside of the marker is a different color. This one actually is still blue, there's a little faint blue line around. It'd be more noticeable if we're using lighter colors. Absolutely the same thing. I'll make sure they're all highlighted. Right click again, format data, marker line color, that's the line outside, solid fill, and I go black as well for that. That's good. Now all my sets are in black. So far we're looking pretty good. Now, how can I improve the appearance of this graph? The next thing I can do is I need to label my axes. So I highlight the graph, that's just me again, left clicking on the graph, and I've got a pile of options up at the top here. If I go into layout, I can see in my layout my axis titles. By clicking on that, I've got horizontal and vertical axis. So I'll do both of these. I'll go horizontal axis, title below the axis, and I've got this section down here where I can label what my axis is. And as I write it, it'll come up here. So what is my x-axis down here? What are these numbers? They refer to my trials. So I just here, write trials, and in it goes. You can see it's automatically converted here. Again, I click on it. I go up to layout. I go axis title. Now I do my vertical axis rotated as we've been practicing in class. And again, that's referring to, in this case, not subject 1, because that's referring to the subject scores, but what is it? Is it scores? Is it seconds? Is it weight? Or whatever we're dealing with, that's what the y-axis is labeled as. So in this case, I'll just call it scores. And that's it. So scores versus trials, and here's my subject one's information plotted across. So in trial 1, he referred this score. In trial 2, he got this score. In trial 3, he got that score, and so on. So far, we're looking pretty good. What else can I do to this? Well, when you're inserting into a Word document, it looks better to not have that border around the outside. So if I, again, highlight my figure, I go to Format Chart Plot, border color, no line. So I'm taking away the actual shape of the border around here. That's going to look better once it goes into the Word document. The other thing is just make sure that the actual font that you're using matches the font that you're using in your writing piece. So you can see it's automatically defaulted often. This one's in Calibri. That's fine. My writing piece is in Calibri, so I'm happy to leave it at that. So what else could I do? I might also, if I think it looks better, just by highlighting my grid lines across the back, I could also delete them. That was just me highlighting them, making sure all the dots are on the side indicating they're highlighted, then hitting delete. And that's looking good. Here I've got a nice line graph of my subject 1 scores. What if I wanted to add subject 2 onto this as well? In order to add a secondary scale onto this, I again need to highlight my markers. I then right-click on the markers, and rather go down to this one which we've been using to change the appearance of the graph, if I go to Select Data, you can see this side here refers to what's on my y-axis. This side here refers to on my x-axis. So my horizontal axis is 1 through 6. If I scroll down, that's unchanged because both subjects did 6 trials. But if I want to add something to this, make another comparison, I go Add, and a box like this comes up. It says Series Names and Series Values. Series names referring to what my second series is. So the series name of this series is my subject 2. So by clicking on that little box there, that's saying I'm ready to select. I click on subject 2, I click back on that box, and that's my subject 2. And it's written in this Excel language, which corresponds to that box up there. Now for my series values, again, it's saying which values do I want subject 2 to be. I click on my little box there, and then I highlight the values that I want, click back on that box, and hit OK. Subject 1, subject 2, both looking at an x-axis of 1 through 6. Look at that. It's looking really good. Now, because I've got different markers, they're squares and these are diamonds, I could have these both in the same color. So I then follow the same pattern. I go highlight the markers, right-click, Format Data Series, line color, solid fill, black, also close. Markers, highlight all my markers. Sometimes it doesn't want to highlight them all. Highlight my markers, right-click, Format Data Series. Now I want to go marker fill, solid line, black. Yes, I'm happy with that. And see the little faint red around it again. So I highlight them all, right click, Format Data Series. That's talking about the marker line color. Let's put that in black as well. Close. If I wasn't happy with diamonds and squares, I could do the exact same thing. I highlight all my markers, right click, Format Data Series. And from this point, I could go the style of the marker as well. And then I could change the appearance of it in every way, shape, or form. I can make it a triangle, a square. I can make it every which way. Sorry, it's marker options up here. Rather than automatic, if I build it in, I've got all these different options about what my little marker looks like, and also the size of the marker. That makes it bigger or smaller. Scores, trials, subject 1, subject 2, the correct information on these two. So that's how you do a line graph. Now, if I'll leave that line graph there for a second. This is showing both subjects over time, each trial. What if instead of that, I wanted to look at the relationship between these two? So let's say rather than they've done 6 trials, let's say I've got a whole pile of numbers for subject 1 and I've got a whole pile of numbers for subject 2. There's no particular order in which these were sorted in. And I wanted to see whether there was a relationship between these two. The better type of graph when I'm looking at the relationship between two sets of data is a scatterplot. So if I highlight both columns, in this case, I leave subject 1 and subject 2 out of it, and I insert a scatterplot. Happy with the scatterplot there. Now I get a figure that looks like this. So in other words, 23 says 23 is in line with about 130. So 23 is in line with 130. So if I clicked on that dot there, 23, 130. And same, 34 would be in line with 150, 37 would be in line with 260, and so on down the page. In this example, really there's no point in having a legend unless it's specifically telling me something. So I could highlight the legend, I could remove it altogether unless I felt that it was actually giving me something. Now we follow the exact same pattern here. I change the color of my markers. I highlight my X and Y axis accordingly. In this case, it would be subject 1 and subject 2 because subject 1's data scores across the bottom. Subject 2 is up the outside. Completely different type of graph. The only thing I haven't talked about in this one is if I highlight my markers and press right click as well, I can add a trend line. Trend line. So all these different types of trend lines, linear is the most common that we're going to be using. So I'm happy with linear. I press close and now I've got a trend line on my figure as well. And the exact same thing, if I wanted to do any other type of graph, I go the exact same up top. So insert, graph, column, line, pie, bars, area, scatter. All these different types of graphs can be formulated by using the above toolbar. Now, how do I insert it in a Word document? Well, here we are sitting in Excel. If I wanted this figure here in my Excel document, I just copy and paste it. If I hit copy, pull up a Word document. This is where I want it. I would just click on it and I would go paste. Paste. And here's my graph in here. Obviously, I've stuffed up the format when doing this, and then I would have to label it beneath, just like over here, figure 4, labeled, whatever its label is. Notice as well, the labeling of here, see figure 4 again is in bold. The actual title is below that, not in bold. And then I've got my hanging, so that S falls under that A. When I look up in the words, the citing for this needs to be in the document as well. So I would need to look through my results here and clearly see that it is cited in text somewhere. Every time you have a table, every time you have a figure, it needs to be cited within the text. Also note the positioning of where the label is. So I've got table 1, the actual labeling of the table is above the actual table. In this case, this is a table. Where I've got a figure, the figure is highlighted or labeled below the figure. So there's a difference there between tables and figures, but both need to be in somewhere cited within the text. Here there's table 1 and table 2, both referred to.